The midday sun poured over the aged stone facade of St. Peter's Church, a landmark in the sleepy Alabama town, where Sunday mornings were more ritual than religion. Families arrived in their crisp Sunday best, their polished shoes tapping against the pavement, the sound blending with the faint hum of whispered gossip and polite smiles exchanged between neighbors. St. Peter's was more than just a church, it was a stage, and Father Thomas was its lead actor, known for his strict sermons and an uncanny flair for drama. He wore his faith like a badge of honor, often claiming it was the last line of defense against the impure. Yet, no one dared to ask what exactly he meant by that. Standing tall on the church steps, Father Thomas surveyed his congregation with the air of a self-appointed guardian angel. He had long commanded respect, his voice alone enough to silence a room. But today, something shifted. From the corner of his eye, he spotted someone who didn't quite fit the scene, or so he thought. The man approaching was strikingly calm, dressed in a tailored navy suit that seemed more fitting for a CEO than a small-town congregation. His confident stride carried an aura of purpose, making heads turn in curiosity. This was Michael Watson, a 45-year-old man whose name was whispered with reverence in faith circles nationwide. Yes, here, in this modest Alabama town, he was just another unfamiliar face. Father Thomas's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened as if preparing to deliver a judgment. Stepping forward, he blocked Michael's path, his polished shoes firmly planted on the worn stone steps. "Excuse me," Thomas barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of arriving families. "What do you think you're doing here?" Michael paused, tilting his head slightly, his expression a blend of patience and curiosity. "Good morning, Father," he replied, his tone warm yet steady. "I'm here to pray. Isn't this a house of God?" Thomas's lip curled, his eyes darkened as if the words were a personal affront. "This is a house of God," he snapped, "but it's not for everyone." The murmurs of the crowd hushed. Eyes darted nervously between the priest and the man in the suit. Michael remained composed, his voice even. "Father, I don't understand. Why would you say that? Aren't all God's children welcome here?" The question hit Thomas like a challenge. His face darkened, his composure unraveling. "You dare question me?" he thundered, his voice echoing through the stone archway. "Men like you dark selves are a stain on sacred ground." The shock was palpable. A gasp ripped through the crowd. A few phones discreetly emerged, cameras capturing every moment as the tension escalated. Michael blinked, his calm demeanor faltering just slightly. "Father, with all due respect, I came here in peace. I don't think." But Thomas wasn't listening. His voice rose to a fever pitch. "Silence. You have no place here, you child of darkness." And then, to the disbelief of everyone watching, Thomas raised his hand and struck Michael across the face. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd. Women clutched their pearls, men stiffened in place. The faint click of camera shutters underscored the growing unease. Michael stumbled back, but only slightly. His hand instinctively touched his cheek, the sting of the slap a sharp contrast to his otherwise composed demeanor. For a moment, time stood still. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a voice broke through the stunned silence. "Your Grace." Heads turned toward the source of the voice, a middle-aged woman clutching a rosary, her face pale with recognition, her words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Father Thomas frowned, his hand still mid-air dropped to his side. His expression shifted from fury to confusion, and then to dawning horror. The whispers in the crowd turned into a wave of chatter. Cameras zoomed in on Michael, who stood tall and unshaken despite the assault. "Your Grace," the woman repeated, her voice trembling. "That's Bishop Michael Watson." The color drained from Father Thomas's face. The reality of his actions hit him like a freight train. The murmurs grew louder, the crowd closing in as the weight of the moment became impossible to ignore. And Michael simply stood there, his gaze steady as if daring anyone to look away. Father Thomas stood motionless, his mind racing to process what he had just done. This man one he had insulted and struck was none other than Bishop Michael Watson, one of the most respected spiritual leaders in the region. Michael remained composed, his expression calm but piercing. He raised a hand, commanding silence without uttering a word. The murmur in the crowd ceased instantly, replaced by a charged, expectant hush. Michael's voice rang out, firm yet measured. "I came here in peace," he began, his words carrying the weight of authority. "I came to pray alongside you, to seek fellowship in this house of God. Instead, I was met with hatred, violence, and judgment. Tell me, Father, is this what it means to serve the Lord?" Thomas's knees buckled, and he dropped onto the cold stone steps, hands clasped together in a frantic plea. "Your Grace, please, forgive me," he begged, his voice trembling. "I didn't know. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake." Michael tilted his head slightly, his gaze unyielding. "You didn't know who I was," he repeated, his tone sharp and deliberate. "And if you had, would it have changed your actions, or would your prejudice have simply found another face, another excuse?" The crowd shifted uneasily. Some nodded quietly in agreement. Others clutched their phones tighter, recording every second of the confrontation. Thomas tried again, his voice cracking with desperation. "It wasn't me. It was the devil. I was deceived, I swear." Michael's eyes narrowed. His voice grew colder. "Do not blame evil for the choices you made with your own heart. Hatred doesn't come from nowhere. It grows in darkness, nurtured by fear and ignorance. And today, that darkness has shown itself here." A collective shiver ran through the crowd. Even those who had merely watched felt the weight of his words. Michael turned to face the people, his voice rising with purpose. "Our Lord teaches love, compassion, and unity," he said, his words cutting through the air like a blade. "Faith does not see color. It does not judge by wealth, by status, or by power. Yet here I stand, in a place meant for worship, witnessing the very things our faith condemns." Heads bowed in shame. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the faint hum of recording phones. Michael turned back to Thomas, his gaze unwavering. "And you, Father, you stood here, week after week, speaking the words of God. You led this congregation. But today, you've revealed what lies in your hard-uttered judgment. Tell me, does this serve the Lord?" Thomas tried to speak, but no words came. He looked small, crumpled on the steps of the church he once ruled with pride. Michael stepped forward, his voice softening but retaining its edge of authority. "This moment is not about shaming one man," he said, addressing the crowd. "It's about bringing light to the darkness. It's about reminding us all what this house is meant to be, a sanctuary for all, without exception." A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd, growing into a wave of applause. Some nodded in silent reflection. Others wiped away tears. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories. Have a wonderful day.